Coming up on Hurricane 2022, be prepared. Are we in for another active season? We'll look at what might influence that. Plus, complacency concerns. 5 years since a significant storm here. How to make sure you are not caught off guard. And climate change. Its impact on hurricanes with the power to change your life. Now, Hurricane 2022. Be prepared.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. Hurricane season is officially here. I'm Eliott Rodriguez.
And I'm Lauren Pastrana. For the next half hour, we're going to help you be prepared for whatever hurricane season might bring.
Atmospheric conditions dictate if and where storms form and where they go. So we begin with the forecast.
Here's CBS 4 meteorologist Dave Warren.
2020, 2021, now 2022. We are seeing this cooler than average water here in the Pacific. It is persisting. It looked like it was trying to go back to neutral, but it is not. It is favored to continue. It's La Nina, and that means cooler water in the Pacific continuing through the summer, may even persist through the fall. And what that means for us here in the Atlantic is in the main development region, we have less wind shear and also a little more unstable conditions, so that can lead to above average hurricane seasons. That is one factor we're looking at. The forecasts are trying to take that back up to some warmer water, but the majority of the individual forecast from July to August, September, October, and November, keeping that cooler water in place, so La Nina likely to continue. Also, we're looking at this warmer than average water here in the Caribbean and also in the East Atlantic. Typically, when you have those conditions present, that can lead to above average hurricane season, specifically warmer water here over the main development regions. That likely will lead to above average forecast. Now, August, September, this is primarily where the storms develop, going into the Gulf and then curving up across the East Coast. By November, October, and November, that area of development here is in this general area, the Caribbean, the Gulf, and up across the East Coast. With that said, experts at the Colorado State University are forecasting an above average season. The season averages are 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. We'll show you this year's list of storm names later in this half hour, but now let's go back to you.
Thanks, Dave. The pandemic is not front and center as it has been the past couple of hurricane seasons, but COVID fallout is raising new concerns. Here's why. New residents are flocking to Florida compared to pre-pandemic levels, and that's expected to continue. The average number of new residents is forecast to top 300,000 annually through 2026. That's more than 800 people moving to the Sunshine State every single day.
So for a lot of folks, this is their first hurricane season. That can be a source of anxiety. On the flip side, complacency among some longtime residents has officials concerned. We have 2 reports. The first from CBS 4's Joe Gorcho, who himself is a storm season first-timer.
I'm terrified.
Michele, Allison, and her husband moved from Indiana to Weston last month. She traded cold winters for palm trees.
You know, blue skies and warm temperatures.
The trade comes with hurricane season. One thing off her checklist is the hurricane shutters that protect the windows. It came with the house.
You don't really need all of the window protected, right? That's just a theory.
As we struggled to get the shutters in place, we sat back down to discuss our plan for when a hurricane approaches.
A contractor that was here working on the house made a comment of, oh, if it's only a 2, it's nothing, you just stay. I stay for those all the time.
And your mind is like, I'm sorry, you stay for a cat too?
Still a hurricane.
She plans to find somewhere to go if the time calls for it. Short points like Miami Beach are typically the first places to evacuate when a hurricane threatens.
Have a plan, build a kit, and stay informed.
Miami Beach Fire Rescue Ops Chief Juan Mestas has 44 years of first responder experience. He stresses when the county says it's time to leave your home, listen.
One of my biggest fears is that a hurricane is heading our way and that people don't heed the warnings, don't heed the evacuation order.
If you need help, Miami-Dade County's website will post evacuation centers, or you can call 311. Also, emergency bus sites will be in place to get you there. If you stay behind, help might not be readily available.
We will keep a skeleton crew. You're not going to be able to call for help. we're here for, just the case that we can go out and start looking if we can.
Mestas also mentions get a hurricane kit ready to go when it's time to roll. Be self-sustainable for 72 hours with water, non-perishables, and medicines.
If it does come, you're ready.
Make sure you know your plan before it's too late.
Joe Gorcho, CBS 4 News.
And then all of a sudden it let loose, and it was like, someone punches you in the gut, whatever. But your house is right in the bullseye.
I'm CBS 4's Joan Murray. It was Hurricane Irma 2017, the first Cat 5 hurricane that season. Irma's 180-mile-per-hour winds caused $77 billion worth of damage. It destroyed Piper Steffen's Big Pine Key home. Because it's been 5 years since we had a direct hit in South Florida, 17 years since Hurricane Wilma knocked out power for weeks, emergency managers say there's a bit of storm complacency heading into the 2022 hurricane season.
It only takes one. Regardless of the predictions and the accuracy, one severe storm is enough to change everybody's life.
So, Broward Emergency Ops Director Tracy Jackson says at the very least, think about a plan, even if you don't write it down.
Because if you're actually prepared, then you can afford to be relaxed.
Looking back, Piper Steffen says you can never be too prepared. Home is now a condo within walking distance of the beach. She's ready to evacuate when the warning hits. So we all need to start formulating a plan. It can be asking yourself some basic questions like, am I in an evacuation zone? Where will I go? Who will I stay with? What about my pet? As I've been told, it's better to have a plan and never use it than the other way around. In Pompano Beach, Joan Murray, CBS 4 News.
The pandemic has made evacuation and sheltering plans at the county level challenging the past two hurricane seasons.
With COVID numbers still a concern, the mayors of Miami-Dade and Broward told us they are ready for what's next, but they emphasized that residents have to do their part as well. If you're new to South Florida, the mayors of Miami-Dade and Broward would like to welcome you and warn you that our tropical paradise can turn to chaos if a major hurricane hits.
Part of the price of living in paradise is we do have some weather events. So June 1 starts hurricane season. We'll be ramping up our public information tools.
At the beginning of hurricane season, do a little check of your property. Do you have batteries? Do you have some water put away? Do you have enough medication that you needed? Be smart in the beginning so you can be prepared for hurricane season.
The pandemic continues to add challenges to hurricane season, but both Broward Mayor Michael Udine and Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava are confident shelters will protect residents from both COVID and hurricanes.
I think everybody always thinks about COVID, and they should. They should make sure that they're handling their personal health decisions as best that they can. We will make sure that when we do provide shelter space, we do it in a safe, proper way.
We have extra space for those that might need a little extra space, but being in a shelter does mean a congregate living situation, and so people need to take precautions.
Both counties' websites have hurricane preparation guides with tips like know the lingo, know the hazards, and know when and where to evacuate. The mayors agree preparation is key.
So we prepare as if Hurricane Andrew is coming back. We prepare for the worst and we hope for the best.
I just want people to really be prepared. Hurricanes can seem scary, especially if it's your first season in South Florida, and we have a lot of new residents down here. But the key is be prepared, and be prepared.
Here's an option to see if you live in an evacuation zone in Miami-Dade or Broward. Go to the Hurricane News section at cbsmiami.com. Click on the Evacuation Zone interactive map, then enter your address and zip code.
I'm CBS 4 meteorologist Lisette Gonzalez. If you have to evacuate, you may need to make arrangements for your pets. Most important, do not leave them at home alone. If you're heading to a pet-friendly shelter, your pets must be pre-registered. Also, make sure your pet's collar has an ID tag, that they have been microchipped, and that all of their prescriptions have been filled. And if you will need evacuation assistance or specialized transportation to evacuate, you must also pre-register for that.
Still ahead on Hurricane 2022, be prepared. A first-hand look at Florida Power & Light's latest technology to restore your power quickly after a storm strike. Plus, you don't want to ever use it, but you have to have it. Making sure you have the right insurance policy with the right coverage to protect your home. And inflation impacting preparation. How you can still be storm ready despite the rising costs for just about everything you'll need. Hurricane 2022. Be prepared. Sponsored by FPL. Learn more at fpl.com/storm. This is Hurricane 2022. Be prepared.
Welcome back. Right now, we have your first look at Florida Power & Light's latest tools designed to help restore power to our homes and businesses after a storm strike.
FP&L showed off the cutting-edge technology, including a new state-of-the-art drone at its annual simulated hurricane drill. CBS 4's Austin Carter reports.
Well, the burning question after a storm passes is usually, when will I get my power back on? Well, first order of business is making sure that these substations are good to go.
The substations feed all the feeders which go out to the neighborhoods, and off the feeder they have lateral pull-offs that feed down the little blocks and stuff like that.
Veteran FPL line worker Heidi Killebrew has a critical role in making sure you can turn your lights back on after a storm. With over 30 years of experience, we asked her why some get their power on sooner than others. She says some places get priority restoration, like hospitals, fire stations, and retirement homes.
Of course, they want to try to work to get their power on as quickly as possible because they, in turn, help the general public.
CBS 4 spoke with Killebrew as FPL prepares for hurricane season. Inside their Riviera Beach Command Center Thursday, a simulated Category 3 hurricane is hitting the Panhandle.
Due to the technology that we have and the smart grid, we're able to see where all of the outages are. All of that information is fed into this command center so that we can best direct the crews where they need to be.
Out in the field, crews will soon have some new tools to get power back on even faster. Outside the command center sits FPL Air 1, their new fixed-wing drone that FPL hopes will reduce long restoration times. Also on display, this fully autonomous rover for substations to safely check substation equipment after rough weather. And FPL is testing a new tree trimming device that is remote controlled. This is to keep vegetation away from power lines and to keep the operator at a safe distance. I'm Austin Carter, CBS 4 News.
I'm CBS 4 meteorologist Jennifer Correa. If the power goes out, a portable home generator after a hurricane can be invaluable, but it can also be dangerous. Here's what you need to know if you have to use one. Run your generator at least 10 feet from your home. Never use it in an enclosed patio, garage, or under an eave, and use recommended extension cords. Also, store the gasoline for it safely. Use a fuel stabilizer and have a working carbon monoxide detector. If you have a generator, now would be a good time to check and make sure it works.
What's next on your hurricane checklist? Now would also be a good time to check on your hurricane insurance policy to address any concerns you might have. Make sure you have the right policy and the right coverage. Windstorm insurance does not protect you from flooding, and it takes 30 days for new flood insurance to take effect, something some homeowners find out too late.
We get a lot of calls to either review their policy, change the coverage, or to start a policy, and you can't do that because the insurance companies, they have a binding moratorium. So you're not able to make any changes, you're not able to put any coverage in place, which is why, again, now is a really good time to review your insurance.
Next, walk through your home and take pictures of your possessions so you have a digital inventory in case you have to file a storm-related claim.
And you're probably paying more for your hurricane insurance, a lot more. And here's one reason why. Citizens, the state-owned insurer of last resort, has grown from 420,000 policies in 2019 to about 760,000 policies now. There's concern that with so many Citizens customers, chances increase that all property insurance customers will be forced to pay special assessments if a catastrophe wipes out Citizens' $7 billion reserve.
You're watching Hurricane 2022. Be prepared. Up next, climate change and why it's changing the way we need to look at hurricanes. Right now, here is the list of this season's storm names. You are watching Hurricane 2022. Be prepared.
Welcome back. Many of us are dealing with supply chain issues and making ends meet because of inflation, and that's having an impact on the preparations we must all be making to be storm ready. Those concerns were front and center at the recent Governor's Hurricane Conference. Emergency managers addressed that and have the advice we should all take to heart.
You buy a little bit now, a little bit in the next week, and just make it much cheaper each week than buying everything in bulk, because that's the way to do it.
Also coming out of the conference, plans to create a standardized way for individual counties to submit requests for assistance following a hurricane.
When a storm threatens South Florida, it's not just our local emergency managers jumping into action. The Division of Emergency Management in Tallahassee has plans in place to step in as needed. I spoke with Director Kevin Guthrie about his priorities as we enter another hurricane season.
We have to be communicative, right? We as emergency management agencies, as mass media agencies, it's our job to make sure that they're informed and they know what to do.
Any issues with complacency that you're seeing? Maybe people thinking, oh, I'll get ready the few days before, have some batteries and flashlights and what have you, rather than really getting that information that they need ahead of time?
One thing that I would just, reiterate at this point is it takes one and only one. If your local emergency manager, if myself, your local city officials are telling you to evacuate, it is for a reason, right? So please heed those warnings. If you do nothing else, listen to what we're asking you to do. But if we ask you to evacuate, if you're in an area that was asked to evacuate, please evacuate. It's for your safety.
And in the past, we've sometimes gotten questions from viewers saying, okay, there's been a state of emergency declared. What does that mean? Can you explain to our viewers logistically, procedurally, if the entire state of Florida declares a state of emergency, what that means for us?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, and honestly, something that nobody's ever asked me before. So what I would say, local state of emergency, what that really does is it opens up general fund, it opens up the emergency preparedness response fund for us to be able to respond to disaster as a state agency, and it allows us to go out and help municipalities and counties, nonprofits, hospitals respond and deal with the disaster that they're facing. Cut out all the bureaucratic nightmare, bring it to the coordination and direction of as few people as possible so that we can help our citizens in their time of need. I know that we're looking at a big insurance issue here in the state of Florida. At the end of the day, the best defense for anyone is their insurance policy.
Guthrie urges you to make sure your insurance policy is written at the right level for replacement and not just repair, because he says the average FEMA payout to Floridians is only around $4,000, not enough to replace a home.
The increasing presence of climate change is making it necessary for us to look differently at hurricanes. Have hurricanes become more impactful, or is it something else behind the increasing scope of their damage? CBS 4's Ted Scouten takes a look.
For 6 years in a row, we've seen very active hurricane seasons. In 2020, we broke a record with an eye-popping 30 named storms going through the entire alphabet and well into the Greek alphabet. 2021 was active too, with 21 named storms using all the names in the alphabet. It was the 6th consecutive above normal season. So why so many storms?
Used to be if a storm was out at sea, we call it a fish storm. We wouldn't worry about it. Nobody was getting affected on land. But now there's shipping out there. And so we're naming storms that are out at sea that may be very short-lived, but it could be on a shipping route.
Dr. Frank Marks is the Director of Hurricane Research for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
To tell you the truth, I haven't seen much of a change in the density or the structure of the storms. They're not any bigger, they're not any stronger.
While Dr. Marks is not seeing changes to the storms themselves, he is noticing changes impacting them, likely, NOAA says, due to climate-changing weather patterns.
What we have seen is indications that the season has gotten a little longer, maybe by a week to 10 days.
Here's proof of that. 2021 marked the 7th year in a row we've had a named storm before hurricane season's official June 1st start. And another change?
They might be slower, or they tend to stall more. What I mean by stall is they'll kind of make landfall and sit for a day or two and then move off.
Dr. Marks explains climate change is slowing the jet stream, which normally pushes storms along. Now some just stay put, like Dorian in the Bahamas or Harvey in Texas in 2017.
So what happened in Harvey, where it sat for almost 4 days and we had over 50 inches, that's not unusual. That's kind of what happens when a hurricane sits for a long time.
Dr. Marks tells us Atlantic Basin storms are tracking a bit further north too. And we're seeing changes to the Gulf Stream, which whips around Florida and up the eastern seaboard.
As the climate warms globally, that ocean current is slowing down. And as it slows down, there is a change in the structure of the ocean surface such that as it relaxes, the water levels will be a couple inches higher, say on the coastal side, than they would be out at sea.
Big surge, big surge.
That translates to rising sea levels and increased storm surge.
Climate change has manifested itself most visibly in the form of storm surge.
Jamie Rome is Deputy Director at the National Hurricane Center and a storm surge specialist. He explains storm surge is when hurricane winds push water onto land, and with rising sea levels, that pushes it even further inland. As that storm surge pushes in against land, it also makes it more difficult for canals to carry rainwater runoff to the ocean, leaving inland communities flooded.
The way that hurricanes impact us as a community is changing. And people who are relying on historical knowledge, meaning what they experienced in some hurricane 5, 10, 15 years ago, is no longer valid. But it's very hard to get people to let go of that mental model.
The big takeaway here, according to the experts, is that we all need to reevaluate how we look at hurricanes, realizing that more and more, it's not just those devastating winds that are causing the huge impacts. Ted Scouten, CBS News, Miami.
You're watching Hurricane 2022. Be prepared. We have the information you need to get ready. If a storm threatens us, here are our radio partners in Miami-Dade and Broward. Our radio partners in the Keys include US 1 Radio. You can find the list of all of our radio partners at cbsmiami.com. And if a hurricane warning is issued for us, South Florida PBS WPBT2 will broadcast CBS 4 and MyTV33 storm coverage with on-screen captioning. Hurricane 2022. Be prepared. Sponsored by FPL. Learn more at fpl.com/storm.
Before we go, we have some important information.
Be prepared this hurricane season with CBS 4 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as cbsmiami.com. Our website's hurricane section is a comprehensive resource to help with your family's hurricane plan.
And count on live CBS 4 hurricane coverage, always streaming on CBS News Miami. Find it on Pluto TV or your favorite streaming device with the CBS News app, then click CBS News Miami. That's going to do it for Hurricane 2022. Be prepared.
For all of us at CBS 4, thank you so much for watching, and please be safe.
Watch CBS 4 News anywhere you go.
It's easy to stream CBS News Miami 24/7. Here's how.
Download the CBS News app, scroll to live channels, then select CBS News Miami.
Or download Pluto TV, tap Live TV at the bottom, scroll to local, then CBS News Miami.
Now you'll see breaking news, weather, and stories that impact you whenever you need it, and it's always free.